There are so many things that could go wrong in an Active Directory environment. Over the years, I've seen everything from clear text credentials in group policies, password for service accounts, actually stored inside user description fields. It's also not that uncommon to find way too many users and service accounts inside privileged admin groups like domain admins. The more I think of it, it seems like hardening Active Directory is hard. Or is it? Let's find out. Hi, my name is STÖK, and this is TrueSec Tech Talks, a geek show by geeks for geeks. And today we're going to dive in a bit to the blue side of cyber, together with my guest here, Peter.
Hey, thank you for having me.
But before we dig into today's topic that's going to be surrounded around access in Active Directory and tiering, I wanted to know what the common people around town thought about today's topic. So we decided to go outside on the city and ask people what Active Directory is and what tiering really is. Hi, stop. Excuse me for a second. Have you heard about tiering?
No.
So I got a question for you. Do you know what an Active Directory is?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
Cool. Then do you know what tiering is and why it's important?
No.
So I got a question for you. Do you know what an Active Directory is?
No idea, sorry.
Okay, that's going to be quite hard, but do you know what a tiering is or why you use tiering?
Different layers, right?
Yeah. You got to know what tiering is, right?
Yes, I know what it is.
Okay, he knows. So I guess we either ask him or we can ask Peter in the couch. What is tiering? Peter, could you, like Eli 5 for me, what tiering is?
So tiering is a way of setting administrative permissions on a correct level. So you don't have more permissions than you actually need at any given time.
So you're kind of like segmenting or isolating stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, cool. But you made a demo for us on this. It's going to be really cool, so we're going to dig into that. But before we kick it off on today's demo and start this episode's viewer challenge, where you can actually win this, the TrueSec Tech Show Geek t-shirt, which is really cool. And to be able to win that, you need to submit your answer to truesec.com/funtimes. And today's challenge is, how many times does Peter say tier inside his presentation? It can be tiering, tiers, something that's similar to tier. I did count the 12 first for you. So make sure you continue counting when that's done. So let's hit it off straight into the demo. Here we go.
So let's have a look at what tiering means, how you get started, what we can do. If you're already experienced and started with tiering, how can you move to the next level? What is the next level, basically? So I have a prepped demo environment. I have a blank DC or semi-blank DC. I have some random OUs that we're going to look at. They don't contain anything right now, but they are a visual representation of how your environment may look. You have servers, you have workstations and users and things like that. As part of tiering, we need to consolidate everything and make sure that we have good organization for everything so we can apply specific rule sets and define where everything goes and who can access everything. Now remember, the access we're talking about here is administrative access. It's not normal user access that needs to access a system to do invoicing or whatever it may be. So if we switch over to my screen quickly, this is a normal Active Directory. We have an OU for servers. We may have an OU for workstations here. And in this demo environment, they don't contain anything. In your real environment, these will contain anywhere from 2 PCs to 200 PCs or 20,000 PCs. It doesn't really matter. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to showcase a PowerShell script to build everything out. And if we just check at the bottom, you can quickly see that it's 980 something rows. It's a pretty big script. It does a lot of things. Among the things that we are doing here is that we are creating OUs. We create a new structure for your tiering. We create setups and configuration for labs if you use labs. And if you don't, you need to start using labs. We also do privileged access workstations. We do normal users and user access and groups and things like that. And if we scroll down, there's also a switch in here, which we use in incident response called minimal. Minimal is something that we use during incident response to make sure that when we get to a customer that's had a fire, everything is chaos, everyone's using domain admin everywhere, and it's all horrible, and we don't want that. So then we use this script in a minimal fashion to create a very, very basic tiering that protects domain admins and nothing else, to ensure that if a threat actor were to come in, we can at least limit the damage. So I will run the script with a company name, fictitious company name in this case. I will create an admin OU name. I will specify how many tiers I have. In normal circumstances, you will most likely have 2. 2 is more than enough for most people. If you have a bigger environment, and if you've already started doing this, this can be increased to add more tiers, to add complexity, but reduce risk. So it is a risk versus complexity argument here. Run the line. So right now, the script is creating all the tiers. It's creating tier 0, tier 1, tier 2. It's also going to create tier endpoint, if I'm not mistaken, which will show up in a second. It's created the GPOs. It has done what's called computer redirection. So by default, when we talk about computer redirection, it's when you add a computer object to Active Directory. You take your device, you go into settings, and you join a domain. The computer object will be created in the computer's container in Active Directory. Now, the downside of this is that you can't apply direct policies to that container. So what we do is we use a tool called CMP redirect CMP, which gives us the ability to say when a user joins the domain and no one's done anything or specified where it should end up, it will end up in the OU you specify instead. Maybe we call it computer quarantine, or you can call it unmanaged devices or something. We can create policies that define that this should become managed. We can also define that they should be, when they log in, they should be greeted with a pop-up message saying, your device is incorrectly configured for this domain. Please reach out to your system admin to get assistance. So while it's building my tiers, and it's also building my demo tier, we'll have a look at some of the group policies that it's created. So as you can see, it's built a bunch of group policies. And these are all policies that define who can connect where. So if we check here, we can see that it's this policy here, restrict admin logons to T1. It's already linked to the T1 OUs. It's going to be applied to everybody who has access to that OU, which means as soon as you put a server and a user in that OU, they will get the correct access. So this simplifies things. As you can see here in the policies that it's built, they're all empty. And it's the same for all of the policies that are currently built. This script does not build policies with settings in them. It only builds the actual policy and links it to the correct OU. So once this is done, which it is now, see, it says done, we have another script. This takes no parameters at all, and it then figures out where you're running from, and then it does get AD objects. It gets the domain, it gets the users, it gets the groups, and it filters for SID IDs. And this is to map the policy that we have pre-created that contains information with the correct domain information, because we want them to be mapped to your domain. We have a small folder with a zip file in it called GPO backup. So you see here, it's about 400 kilobytes in size. It's not a big one. It contains all of the policies we have. They're extracted from a temporary domain that we have, that we build this in. We create a new line and we do import tsx GPO, and we run it, which will expand the archive. If you're very, very quick at reading, you will see that it builds all of the, or imports all of the information into the GPOs. The naming of these match the exact naming that are built for each and every one of the GPOs that are already in the domain. It also verifies and only imports the policies that you actually have in the domain. So if there is no policy, it won't actually import it. So if we go back to our domain, you can now see there's a bunch of security information in here. And this defines who cannot log on, basically. You cannot log on if you are part of this group or that group. You cannot run batch job if you're a part of this group or that group. And it's basically blocking all of the settings that you have. So we have the admin OU that we created. We also have the via Monster OU that we created, the company name that I picked. And you can see we get endpoints and users, and we get all the tiers. And if we expand one of the tiers, you see we have OUs for servers and service accounts and groups and everything that is mapped to each and every one of the tiers. So this means that we can now start putting things in the correct tiers, which will also apply all the security policies needed for that specific tier, ensuring that if you have a computer that's a member of tier 0, only tier 0 admins will be able to log on to it. This is a very, very powerful yet simple tool to use. This is how AD was supposed to be done years and years ago. Microsoft did white papers on how to build this out and how to ensure that you had this structure. And yet, for some reason, people opted to not do this and instead do a mirror of the actual organizational structure the company has. But it's not what AD was meant for. AD has always been meant as a security container, basically. Now the heavy lifting starts for you as an organization. You have to move all the servers into the correct tier. And it's important to see that I'm currently in tier 0, which means I can see all of the admins. But if you are in tier 1, you will never be able to see tier 0 admins. If you're in tier 2, you will not be able to see tier 1 or tier 0 admins. So you can never give yourself more permissions than you already have. So keep that in mind. We have organizations who have circumvented this, and that breaks the entire tiering concept. So it's important that you keep this structure as is to make sure that you only give permission to the relevant people.
Okay, so if you've done that, like you've done the first part of the tier, you run the script, you're all prepared, what would be the next step? I mean, you populated the OUs, right? But if you want to level up your game, what do you do?
So the level up from that is privileged access workstations.
Oh.
Yeah, which means each dedicated admin gets a dedicated either hardware or virtual machine, depending on the setup. There's a few ways of doing it, but there's a core side to this, which means that your admin credentials may never leave your specified device. And then you can only do that type of administrative work from that specified device, which in turn means you're not spreading your credentials even further. So it's a way of further limiting this and making it even harder for a threat actor to gain access.
So instead of using some kind of jump box that's shared,
exactly.
You're using your dedicated VM or your dedicated machine to access certain things. But what happens if that computer gets compromised, though?
So the way you're supposed to do this is you need to have physical hardware.
Yeah.
The physical hardware needs to run UEFI, it needs to have TPM, it needs to run BitLocker and stuff, things like that. And it can be a member of the domain. It's then a member of the tier 0 tier.
Oh, yeah.
Which means only tier 0 admins can log into your physical device, which you carry with you. So, and then on that, you can have a VM for your normal day-to-day productivity work, like email and stuff like that. But that's a separated VM. So the only way to gain access is if you actually lose access to your machine. And if that happens, one of your co-workers or co-admins can actually block your device, which means you no longer have access from that device at all. Even if they have your credentials, the credentials is only valid together with the correct device. So
I want to play the devil's advocate here, though.
Okay.
Imagine for a second that you're a big organization. A lot of people work there, and you have this lockdown. Okay, maybe like super admin work, maybe you're not doing that on a day-to-day basis, but adding users, resetting passwords, and doing all that help desk kind of management provisioning.
Yep.
How do you do that then?
So help desk should actually have not necessarily a privileged access workstation, that not necessarily all the way there, but they need to have dedicated admin accounts for that type of work that they don't spread around. They don't log into other devices with. They have dedicated access for that. But they still have limited access. And this is still a level up, right? So even if you get those credentials, you can only reset passwords for users that are below yourself in tiering way. So for a help desk, that would be regular users. A help desk admin can never reset a tier 0 admin, so you can never move up. You're always stuck in the same tier. So if you as a tier 0 admin lose your password, you need to talk to your other tier 0 admin friend who can then reset your password because he's already a tier 0.
And is this recommendation that you think it should be implemented that had at least 1 or 2 tier 0 admins, but maybe, not use one or I mean...
So on top of this, you can create what's called break the glass accounts.
Yeah.
The same principle applies to Azure and cloud environments and so on. Exactly. Paper strip in a lockbox somewhere, break the paper, use the paper to gain access to that specific account. You do what you need to do to gain access again, and then reset the password on the break the glass account. New paper in the lockbox.
And then have mad monitoring on that one.
Exactly.
So like if whatever that account ever logs in, there's going to be like this.
There's going to be alerts, flashy lights, and bosses coming down and going, "What is going on?
Who broke the glass?"
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Wow, thanks. Now when we understand how tiering works, let's dig into Peter a bit. Who are you?
I'm a 36-year-old that has been in IT for the last 15 years or so.
Cool.
I've been in IT for a long time now. Started working out with Modern Workplace, basically. And then it's grown from there. So now currently in incident response is the primary focus.
Interesting. How does a normal workday look for you?
My workdays stretch from being nice and quiet to very, very hectic. It's a huge span. So some days when we are in slow times or off times from the incident work, it can actually be a relaxing day, and I can sit around and do gaming and other things that we geeks like. But during incident works, it can be very hectic. Doing 16-hour days is not uncommon.
Wow.
Yeah.
But how did you end up entering into incident response? Because, like you said, you come from managed service and all that stuff, but now you're here. How was your path?
So my path was, I started my journey from normal IT support, basically, help desk users, and then grown to sysadmin and things like that. And then from there, it's become a consultant work. And then it's customer calls with random things that is broken. And that's how you basically start your incident life, if you want to call it that. And then it's grown to now cybersecurity incidents, basically. We do all sorts of incidents, of course, but very much focused around cybersecurity incidents and finding the threat actors and making sure they don't get back in and all of that. So it's been a long journey. You need to have some experience to do the work that we do.
You stumbled upon quite a lot of legacy stuff as well, right?
We see
or is
a lot.
Everything just brand new?
Nothing is brand new. I'm going to say it's the opposite way around. Nothing is brand new. Everything is very, very old, generally.
Yeah. We opened up this show with talking about the misconfiguration that we've seen in Active Directory.
Yeah.
And tiering is one way to just limit the amount of lateral movement, right?
Yeah.
Because every hacker's goal is always to get DA or domain admin rights. And if you're doing it right, that can happen. You can get a breach and you'll have domain admin before lunch if it's a flat environment. So hardening, like using the script that you demoed for us today, is a real cool thing. But if somebody wants to get a hold of that script, what would they do?
Cool. So send an email to community@truesic.com. I or one of my other IR colleagues will respond, and you'll get a copy of the script for free, no charges. But then we can have a personal connection, and we can help you out if there's any issues with running it. Sweet.
So you don't pump it in, just run it. There's a little bit of safeguard there that so people don't mess things up. And because it has taken years for you to develop this, and seeing how things work, and he's making it as simple as possible. That's really cool. Thank you for answering these kind of questions, but dude, you're not getting off that easy, because we are now entering into the segment called the Guest Challenge. And to be able to participate in the Guest Challenge, well, I prepared a couple of things for you. And the things that we're going to compete in is Patch the Switch. It's either hand slap game, it would be the Imposter, or Blast from the Past, and eventually STÖK Decides, which is where I just choose what you're going to do anyway. So feel free to spin the wheel and see where we ends up. Woo!
I broke it.
You broke it. That was crappy. Okay, can you do it again? Oh, that's number one. Patch the switch.
Patch the switch. Okay.
Oh, sweet.
So what's my goal?
Ooh, I got this nice, good old catalyst here for you. And the challenge is as follows. I got some patching cables. and I got a face mask. So I want you to patch this switch on the following ports. Amy, can I get a couple of port numbers? 3. 7. 8. 13.
3, 7,
8 and 13. So it's
Okay.
3, 7, 8, and 13. So face mask goes on. I had that here. Then I want you to patch in the numbers 3, 7, 8, and 13.
3, 7, 8, and 13. Okay.
Okay, let's put that here. Gonna be sweet. Okay, so go for 3. And I'm gonna push you. So you got now 20 seconds to do that, starting 5 seconds ago. 10, 9, 6.
That's the one.
Okay, see what we got. Did he succeed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, not even close then.
Not even close. You messed this one up. But it was a good challenge. I like that.
That was a lot harder than I expected.
And under time pressure.
Yeah.
I want to have a picture of you to put in my friends book because, hey, I had a friends book where I put my friends in. So, see if I can get this turned on. Apparently there's some kind of brain part of that involved. So, here you go. Smile.
Ooh, it's like an old Polaroid camera. It's awesome.
Because analog is cool. I know that you had a question for Hasain, so I asked him that.
Yep.
Whenever you need to find an answer for something, there's one simple way to solve that. It's either go on Wikipedia and get false information, or you ask Hasain. Why shouldn't or wouldn't you build a multi-tiered certificate infrastructure on an on-prem domain environment?
That's an interesting one, definitely. Well, if you don't have all the requirements in place, if you don't understand what the requirements you have, like in the nearest future, then just build a simplified one. You can always tear it down and rebuild it whenever you have all the requirements gathered and mapped.
So basically, know what you're doing before you kick it off.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yep.
Are you satisfied with that answer, though?
I'm very happy with that answer.
Because that's kind of how it works out.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm worried about something and I can't figure out, I call Hasain.
Yeah.
That's
what you do.
That's what you do. So, if you want to make sure that you're staying updated with things that we do here on this show, then make sure you head over to truesec.com/stayupdated. And I'll see you around in the next episode. Thank you.